Hello there, it's Josh here from Racing to Profit. I hope you're well. Hopefully you can hear me and see me loud and clear. We have a 3 mile, class 3 and above, decent midweek handicap chase tomorrow at Exeter. As I speak to you, it is about 10 to 7 in the evening on Monday, the 23rd of October. And this is just the kind of race that gets me very excited. It is the only race type, really, over jumps which I attack cold, and by that I mean I've got no stats, big race stats. I have no trends or other stats or other pointers. I am just like a pig in shit, excuse my language, with races just like this, mainly because they're a bloody tough puzzle, and they're quite hard to solve. I don't probably solve as many as I like, but thankfully, in recent history, at least the last couple of years, when I do solve them, the odds are normally decent enough. They pay for plenty of losers and leave a bit of money left over for some beer at the end of the year or the season. So yes, I get very excited about looking at these types of races, and I thought rather than write War and Peace, I instead would try and record a fairly quick video. I say that, always the usual caveat. Hopefully we'll get it done in kind of 10-15 minutes. And I will do a quick run through. I've already been through both of these. I'm on Gigi's Gold. If you haven't seen that, that's what I use. Fantastic bit of kit. I use that for these races alongside Horse Race Base, and this is the race car within there. And yes, I kind of go through all of the runners, making a judgment and trying to form an opinion on what I think looks most likely in terms of obviously likely winners, unexposed horses, but then I get a feel for all of the runners and what I kind of think, how I think the shape of the race may be, how the race might unfold. And then I look at the market, having made a judgment on all of the runners and getting a feel for what I think may be overpriced. My eyes effectively look straight at the bottom and kind of work my way up to a point to when I can kind of stop. And I can also get to a point where I'm very comfortable having looked through all the runners and seeing the prices of, say, these two at the top and going, no, thank you, you can bolt up, but I'm not touching you at that price. And I will explain why in a moment. So you will see on the blog that I have tipped King of Glory for Venetia Williams at 14 to 1, which just seemed a bit big. It is nearly Venetia time. I was on the fence with the chase at Carlisle with her 4 to 1, 9 to 2 winner, which again I tied myself in knots thinking that was a bit on the short side, which I think it was justified. He did only win by a nose, but it did prove that her string are bouncing, they're fit. And the micro system, which I will kind of dust off this week and share with you on the free post and email it out as well, which we have followed for the last two kind of Novembers, has raked in massive profits, maybe even the last 3 Novembers, I lose track. And this one, if this was kind of 7-8 days time, King of Glory would qualify against that angle. But anyway, they are fit. What interested me with this one, other than the fact that he wasn't 6 or 7 to 1, he was 14s, and I could easily see him go off half that price, wouldn't be a shock, is the fact that he is lightly raced over fences. He's only had 9 runs. If I look at his runs in handicaps, again 9. In the distance, which intrigued me, he's only had 1 run. Now this, if we have a quick look at his form, you can see here he ran okay in some kind of 21 furlong races, getting a bit outpaced, plugging on a bit. He won in December 15 at Warwick over 20 furlong, the race which produced quite a few winners, and he did that fairly well. He then had an almighty time off. He clearly had problems. It was over, what, 400 days or so. Well, actually, if I look on Horse Race Base, which is a had this, you can look at the horse's recent form and kind of see the days. 414 days off. He returned at Sandown, where he ran very well. And he possibly just started to get tired. He possibly, he kind of, as you can see there, you can read the race description. I remember watching this race. He loomed up, but then he did peck 2 out. I should think that knocked him wind a bit, I think, given he was running after 400 odd days. But he ran well enough in a race which kind of has produced a few winners and horses that have gone on to run well since. He then reappeared 11 days later, and it wouldn't shock me if he bounced. Um, and I think we can excuse that. As Fogwell's a shorter distance, he was probably absolutely knackered still from that blinding run at Sandown. I suppose what I'm asking him to do is to repeat that Sandown run. The mark I'm not bothered about. £5 higher than what he was then. Charlie Deutsch's claim may be a bit less irrelevant to me. I'm not fussed. That's one dodgy jump, two dodgy jumps. Makes that an irrelevance in terms of opposition closing down or having more in hand. And the point with him is he's unexposed over the distance. That's the main reason why I'm not fussed about that handicap mark. I do not know how good he could be over 3 miles at Exeter. The other thing I'm pretty confident is that he will be fit. I do not think, given this horse has had problems, given he returned after 400 days when he went very close to winning, I would think Venetia Williams hasn't taken a chance here. I would kind of think they want to catch him now, or they may not catch him at all. He's had another 240 days off. He's clearly hard to train. I would be shocked if Venetia Williams has not got him tuned up to the minute to run his race here. Now, he may not be good enough, of course, but in that context, given her as a trainer, if I look here at her course record, pretty decent and profitable. If I look at handicap chases, as you can see there, 7 from 36, 14 of place. That is solid. Those returning after 60 days or more off the track in the last 5 years, well, she's 3 from 10, and half of them have won or placed. If I look at over the distance of 3 miles, she's 2 from 7, 4 have placed. This horse will race prominently, I think. Excuse me. Hers generally do. I'd be disappointed if he was held up and slightly surprised. I don't think he'll necessarily get the lead here, but they will have him in the right place. And when you look through the market, having looked at his profile, knowing what I do about the trainer, he just looked interesting at 14s, whereas some of the others didn't quite look so interesting, I should say, and certainly some of those at shorter price. So that's the case for him. There are some trainer stats to underpin his case as a horse. I think he'll be fit. He's unexposed at this trip. That Sandown run suggests he stayed. This ground may be slightly easier, and he comes off after a short delay off, although still quite a long time. And with any luck, he will be there kind of 1 or 2 from home, and if he can stay there, we shall see. But the point is, yes, there may be doubts, but it is built into the price. Next, I am on Umberto Dolivate. I kind of think he might be a bit too long in the tooth, but 16 to 1 was just too big for me. And the market will guide. If he stays at 16 to 1 or drifts bigger or is only nibbled into kind of 14s, I should think he won't be fit. But you will see that he does like Exeter. Excuse me. As you can see there, he's run 8 times here. He's won 3. He's placed in a further 3. He generally runs his race. In January, his last win at the track, January this year, he won off 116. He absolutely hacked up, and that wasn't a bad race. It was decent enough. Produced a few runners that have won and well since, and kind of placed. So I just kind of thought he did look a kind of big price. Now, if I look back here, this time last year, I wondered if he would be fit. He qualified against some of my trainer stats, which he actually does do this time as well. And he returned after a similar break, having run in April. His last run before he returned to Exeter, and he made virtually all and stayed there. That was off 108. He then returned after a dodgy run at Toaster, returned again here to Exeter, off 116 and absolutely hacked up. He then lost his form running at other places, and his odds kind of were big enough, and he didn't really move, wasn't really backed. He is on, what is he on now? 122, which I don't think is too bad. And actually, if you cast your eye down to his form here, back in the day in March 14 or so, he has won, admittedly just a small field kind of 4-runner race, but he has won off 130 and 125, and I find it hard, given he's 16 to 1, to say that he can't win from this mark. I clearly will not be shocked if he bumps into something that has a fair amount more in hand. But it's that kind of year, and it's got that kind of feel. Again, he will race prominently. Wolford's been going okay. He's only had 4 runners recently. One has at least won. Given this his favours track, I'd be surprised if he wasn't tuned up to the max here. and I would like to think he will be there at least kind of 2 from home, and after that, fingers crossed, who knows. But hopefully, like he did last November, they may have found the key to getting him fit at home, and he will be fit. And he just looks solid. He is, I think, the most solid, been there and done it handicap chaser in this race. Those that are more that have had more racing, that are kind of more exposed. So they were the main two. And if I look at the data in terms of the pace maps, which is vital, I really don't want to be backing anything that's held up in handicap chases, and certainly not that's 5-1. You can make, a case at certain odds and things. So that might do for the Tom George horse. He might win hard held, who knows. King of Glory will be up there. He did lead for quite a time when he ran at that. Oh, sorry, no, he's led before. He's tracked the pace before, so I'd like to think he'll be up there. Likewise, Umberto, I should think it's not impossible he gets an easy lead here. Not easy, but the Hobbs horse, well, it's Richard Johnson, they might try and be aggressive on him. He's a dodgy jumper, which I'll get onto in a moment, or has been in the past. So he will, I would be shocked if they didn't try and be aggressive with him. And that may be some indication. If he can get on the rhythm on the front end, kind of first or second, then you've got the Venetia Williams horse kind of hacking in third or fourth away, both in a lovely jumping rhythm. It's not impossible those two have it sewn up a long way from home. Of course, I am dreaming there, but what is this game if you cannot dream? So that's those two. That's the kind of pace. The other kind of dangers there are on my notepad, which you may be able to see there. Probably not. Where are we? There. I kind of use a red pen and put the letter U and put it in a circle for unexposed, and that's for me to get a feel of how many horses in the race are likely raced over fences, and in theory there should be more to come one day, and that day may be today. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's a 7 or 8 that I would class unexposed horses. Now, if I was a professional gambler, which I'm not, I'm a hobbyist with a kind of professional mindset, or trying to make it more professional, I suppose. But you just wouldn't touch this race with a barge pole. You've got horses where you're guessing over fitness. You've got trainer form that you're not 100% clear on. Big field, lots of questions, lots of unexposed horses, 7 or 8. Lots of could be anything types. You generally wouldn't touch this as a betting proposition, but it's a fantastic puzzle that needs to be solved, and I quite frankly cannot resist trying in these types of races, and will be doing all season long. So V Lille, or however we say his name, the Richard Phillips Hobbs horse, is unexposed as a chaser, only had 5 runs, placed once. A repeat of that Haydock place behind Yala Enki, that kind of run might see him go close here. Clearly is on a handicap mark he can probably win from. What I'm concerned is, if you've ever watched, and I remember watching him last year, he can clout a fence. He can hit a fence, or he did last year. Now, Hobbs is clearly in form. He has started really well. This race last year had about 7 or 8 runners in it, I think. And the fact this is so much depth here may be an indication of the fact that yards have been able to get their horses out more. It would suggest the ground, I remember last year it was very dry for quite a while, and a lot of trainers couldn't get a lot of grass work into their horses. The fact that likes of Venetia Williams have had a winner already after a long break, the fact this field has such a big size with horses that are coming after a break, may suggest that quite a lot of yards are quite further forward in terms of their fitness and their preparation, so that's something to keep in mind. But Vieux-Lille could win. I might have a saver on. 8-1, 7-1 generally didn't feel, it felt okay. I can see why his profile. My concern is the jumping. I think he'll stay. He'll clearly handle the ground. He's got form at the track and experience at the track, and his handicap mark's good, and the yard is in cracking form. So clearly I'm not going to fall off this seat here if he wins well tomorrow. My judgment is that 7-8-1 wasn't overly generous because of that jumping, and because of the break as well, the fitness. Now I kind of think he will be fit. If I look at Philip Hobbs handicap chasers after 60 days or more, he solid 15% win strike rate. Again, that's solid over the distance, solid in the class. So clearly they can get them fit, and he may well be fit. I'm a bit on the fence. I thought that was short. Maybe I've got that one wrong. The point is, I could definitely make a case for 2 horses that looked massively overpriced, and that's kind of the end of the story, I suppose. But yeah, his jumping's a bit of a niggle. clearly, if you fancy him, I'm not going to put you off. I may throw a kind of saver change 250 or fiver at him to see, because it wouldn't surprise me if he goes quite well. Alvarado's 12 now. I can let him run. I think he might get outpaced around here. I still don't believe he is one going right-handed over fences. Kilby Kid looks long in the tooth, and I think is a bit handicapped up to his best. He does get £7 off, but I would like to think there's going to be something here a bit lightly raced over fences that will have his measure. He increasingly looks like a summer horse these days, and I was happy to leave him. Dueling Banjos, I'm not going to fall off my seat if he goes well. Why? Because he's unexposed. He's had 6 runs over fences. He's won 1. He's placed in 4. You will see, though, from these runs that have generally been in small fields. The win over fences was over 19 furlongs in heavy at Fosslas, which probably took some getting, although it was a small field. There are niggles, and this is all about price. It's all in context of price. He is generally available at 6 to 1 as I speak, and that is the price if I was tipping him that I'd have to tip him at. He has that field size question. He's got cheek pieces for the first time. I don't necessarily think that's a good sign. They must think he's a bit lazy or could concentrate more. He returns after 214 days off, so there's a fitness unknown, and this is all in the context of him being 6 to 1. There's a stamina niggle, and there's a field size question about how he will cope surrounded by this many horses. Now he can win, and I can live with him winning, because those questions for me and how I approach this type of race are enough to put me off at his price. Were he 14 to 1, were he 10 to 1 or bigger, or 12 to 1 or bigger, I'd probably still sat here scratching my head and wondering whether or not to take a punt. Bailey is okay, then possibly just starting to come into form. I don't think fitness is a major issue with his. If I look, there you go, 60 days or more with handicap chases the last 5 years. That is solid. Some could argue that's a microsystem in itself. I would have to look, because those winners, there may be a big price winner kind of skewing those profit stats, but they're solid. And you can see there over 3 miles, they are decent also. If I look at the track, 2 from 5, 3 places. So clearly, again, another kind of young, lightly raced chaser, unexposed. I will not put you off. He's been consistent. I suspect he can win from this mark. He will race prominently. He may try and lead also, which therefore may negate that my concern about field size. If he leads, or he's only ever got 1 horse in front of him, he clearly won't be aware that he's in a race with 12, 13 other horses behind him, and therefore won't be put under pressure with his jumping in quite the same way either. So I can see a case for him. I just thought those couple of niggles, fitness, field size and stamina, which I'm still not 100% sure he stayed, or he hasn't proven that he fully stays. I kind of think he does, but he still does have to go out there and prove it. So, he might run his race. Clearly, I won't be shocked, but I was happy to take him on at the prices. Joe Tynock's out of form. Kerry Lee rarely has a winner kind of over 12, 14 to 1. The market can usually guide. He just doesn't look in form. Time for West doesn't look good enough to me, and comes here on the back of a shocking run. Even though that was after a break, even though it might have been over a trip too short, that was just too bad. And I know he was 20 to 1, but it's quite a leap of faith to then go back him here. What else I want to say about him? The ground's a slight niggle if this is properly soft. So let me go. Where are we? Here we go. What are we doing here? Sorry, I'm just minimizing. That's what I want to do. So yes, he's only had 1 chase start, which was last time. I kind of think that is not enough experience for a race like this, and I am quite happy to take him on. The ground is a slight niggle, as is his actual class and ability at this level. Clearly, because he's only had 1 chase start, he's not the type of horse, if he romps in, you go, oh goodness, that was a shock, because of that unexposed profile over fences. But you kind of can't back everything in these races, obviously. So I was happy to leave him. The Johnny Farrelly horse looks like a summer horse to me, and I have questions over his handicap mark, field size, the ground, and whether or not, and the class, and whether or not he's actually just a summer horse. So Nunos, I can dismiss because he's too short. 5 to 1 in a race like this, not for me personally. He'll be held up. He has looked like a Class 4 horse, and he struggled at Class 3 previously. He is only a 7-year-old, of course. He has a new handicap mark, kind of over fences. Well, his handicap mark's gone up, I should say, so he's got that to contend with. Maybe the tongue tie made all the difference. That was worn for the first time last time out and is retained here. And he may go all right. He has been held up, which would be a concern. This is a much deeper race, I think, than that last one. 5-1, he might be a fair favourite, but I can take him on and I can live with myself if he wins. Colin Tizard has an interesting record with handicap chasers after a break of 60 days or more. Clearly not too bad, not brilliant, only 14%. I wouldn't say that's superb. Over 3 miles, not so good. 0 from 28, 4 places over this kind of trip. It kind of makes sense. If you think you're kind of running longer, you may need to be fitter. You may need to sustain an effort for a longer period of time just because of the nature of the distance and the fact you're using more energy because you're jumping more fences. So there's something in that. That kind of stat concerns me. I think he might be a horse to watch at a lowly level here moving forward this season, mainly because I remember he hacked up might be a weak race, but it was okay, at Plumpton, quite unexposed. He then was travelling really well in this race at Plumpton behind when we actually tipped, I think, and backed Morny Wing at kind of 14s. And you kind of remember the winners, especially when you don't back bucketfuls of them. Yeah, he ran well there, was going well before he unseated, and then he kind of maybe lost his confidence, or I'm not quite sure. That fitness question put me off in the fact that he's kind of 10-1. It's not like he's 20s or I'm about to have a howler. He is another one that is lightly raced, and I will not fall off my seat if he runs well. But that fitness question was just a slight little niggle over this in terms of Tizard's record. In handicap chases, that is, he can clearly get them fit, and he could get this one fit probably if he wanted to. But he does have to step up. He has to leave 3 poor runs behind, or 2 poor runs. He has to prove this handicap mark isn't beyond him. This is a stronger race than the one he won at Plumpton. So yeah, we'll see. It's going right-handed, and he's got a few questions. Bindon Mill for Victor Dartnell in the last 2 years is 0 from 54, 13 places with all runners returning after 60 days or more. If I look at the last 5, if I look at chases, he's only 3 from 58 in all chases. He's 2 from 52 in handicap chases. There's a question there about how fit this one will be and whether or not he's got him fit. Of interest is the fact that despite all those shocking stats, those 2 from 50, whatever it was, those wins have come at Exeter, which is interesting. And his horse here, Bindon Mill, is another unexposed one. And is interesting enough. He won in a Class 4 novice chase here, readily off 113. He has that big kind of hike in the weights, and you can see here, if you cast to the right, 33 horses, or excluding his run next time out, 32 different horses have run since. None have won, 9 have placed. It would suggest that race wasn't the strongest. It was a Class 4. Here's another that is held up out the back, which you are asking for trouble if they adopt those tactics again today. So a single figure price, given there is that fitness niggle, although given Dartnell's record at the track, it might not be as much of a niggle. And more importantly, whether or not he's quite good enough, that new handicap mark and his general running style over fences being held up, they were enough just to put me off at a single figure price. Another one, I will not be shocked if he wins. I may be shocked if these 3 further ones win. Bears Rails again has that fitness niggle. He has a class question, a handicap mark. And I was kind of quite happy to leave here. I'm not sure if he'll be good enough. He can be quite inconsistent. A good run followed by a shocker. And I'm just going to have a look now and see if there's anything I kind of missed when I went through him the first time. Again, another horse who isn't overly raced over fences, 3 from 11, 5 places. But he has generally done his winning at Class 4. And as yet, although he hasn't had many goes at Class 3, that is a question. But again, yeah, there's questions there, but I'm not going to be shocked if about 12 horses, or any one of 12, kind of go close to winning this. Talk of the South has a question. He has a fitness question as well. Paul Henderson, I'm just trying to remember the stats. Again, he can ready them, but they're pretty rare. 4 from 56, 0 from 8, 0 places over 3 miles. So there's a question there. And I'm also not sure he will be good enough against this field. He ran the odd okay race, but he does need to show more. Again, maybe not. Again, he might not be. I wouldn't fall off my seat if he went quite well either. But again, here's another hold-up horse. So I've got fitness questions, I've got tactical questions. He will need a lot to fall right. He'll need to be on his game. He'll need to jump well. If you own a handicap chaser, I do not know for the life of me why you would try and consistently hold them out the back, because you're consistently asking for trouble. Lax Sacra for John Flint. He has a few questions to answer also, including class. New handicap rating, does have a handy £7 from a decent jockey. Again, he's got a fitness question. As yet hasn't won after a kind of break of 60 days or more. If I look at Mr. Flint, just try to remember what his fitness stats were. Yeah, I mean, in fairness, he hasn't had that many, although of interest, and just note this down for the future, really. John Flint, all horses, all runners the last 5 years have had 60 days or more off the track. 1 from 107. Blimey. And that win was actually in a chase, which I suppose is interesting enough. So yeah, there's a fitness niggle there and then ability, and I was just quite happy to leave actually. But clearly, I will not fall off my seat pretty much if, well, Jo Time looks completely out of it. And Bears Rails possibly. The rest, you might not fall off your seat if they kind of ran their race. It is that kind of race, not one that you should probably bet on, not one that you should go mad on. But I couldn't resist. And at the odds, when looking down odds checker, where is it? Here. Having been through all of that and knowing what was in my head, discounting him, not confident on him, various reasons for him and him not good enough in experience. Then I came to one that was solid. I thought I could make a case for 16s, 14s. That looked good. Summer Horse. Pulled up last time, a bit out of form. Not sure he has the ability. King of Glory, interesting. Oh, 14. So I've already hit 2 of those that I was kind of excited about or thought had interesting profiles for race conditions. And in King of Glory's case, kind of unexposed and a bit of the kind of mysterious about him that could be anything in these race conditions. Hit him at 14. So I'm kind of going, well, those two, they feel too big. Kilbury Kid, reasons I'm happy to be against. Oh, Zephyrus Blue, I didn't mention, did I? I skipped past him deliberately because I think he is interesting, mainly because, well, the way in was the trainer form. Harry Whittington is on fire at the moment. He can get them fit at home, as you can see there. There probably might be the odd decent price winner in there, but again, that's an interesting little micro angle. Note that down, Whittington. I am literally noting that down. 60 plus days. I will dive into horse race base at some point and have a quick look at that because those stats are decent. That profit may be down to 1, 2 big price winners, we shall see, but there's something to go on there. So fitness won't be a problem. Again, he's 7-year-old, so he can get him fit. The yard is in cracking form. He's only had 3 runs over fences. He dossed up at Fosslas over 3 miles in heavy. Stamina clearly isn't a problem. He was whacked by the handicapper. He was then didn't return till March, which was quite a gap. Maybe that suggested a problem. I'm not quite sure. But he didn't run very well there. You can probably forgive that. He is lightly raced and kind of Vieux for Philip Hobbs and Zephros Bleu were the kind of 2 that I earmarked as main dangers. And he does look interesting. 12 to 1 was okay. Again, I have just gone those with the kind of more battle hardened that I think might kind of slightly do better at this level. But he is unexposed, and maybe I'm going to kick myself for not taking the plunge on him at 12 to 1, given all those boxes ticked in terms of trainer form and no concerns, I don't think, over fitness if he wants to get them ready. Having said that, there was something which did niggle at me from memory when I had a look through before. And that is, oh no, maybe there wasn't anything. Sorry. Well, it was only 2 from 20 in handicap chases, but they're small numbers, obviously, and not too much to worry about there, I don't think, against his overall record at getting them fit. So Zephyrus Blur looked interesting. Again, him and the Hobbs horse might be the 2 that I chuck 5s at, having chucked possibly a fair bit more at the 2 main selections at the prices. So do with that as you please. Clearly, well, I've mentioned every horse, so I will have mentioned the winner. And depending on what runs well or what wins, I will be, if it's not either of my two, I'll be sat after the race, staring into the abyss, going back at this race card, going back through horse space and asking, what did I miss? And could I have got myself in a position to have backed that horse? I will be able to live with myself if the cup at the top of the market, the Bailey horse and Sununos win. I can live with that. If something else at kind of double figure price wins that I have not backed, then there will clearly be questions to ask. But that's that. Another short video, just a nice 30 minutes. But I hope those of you who like watching such things may have found that of some interest. So with that said, I will leave that there. Maybe the last thing I will do actually is click on the Instant Expert tab, which is a brilliant kind of quick snapshot of horses kind of form and winning form against the going, the class, of course, distance, field size, their handicap rating. That's on the play stats. So a lot of orange and green would suggest that many horses here have ran well against race conditions before, not necessarily in chases, but in race conditions. And in fairness, it just looks a very, very competitive race. So we shall see how they all got on. You can note that page in front of you, maybe use that as your own starting point before you have a dive in at different other horses. But yes, that's that. That's this race, and I think that's about time I said over and out. I hope you enjoyed watching that, and I didn't drone on too long or say anything that wasn't kind of useful or interesting or get you thinking. So yeah, that's that. That's the race, 3:20. King's Glory is going to track Umberto Dolivar in kind of overtaking, jumping the last for a nice 1-2 and a nice payday. So yeah, that's me saying until the next time. This is Josh saying bye for now, and thanks for watching.